Okay, so for Module 11 in this class, we're going to be looking at how we can use the session variable or the session superglobal to store a username and password once a user logs in and actually use that across a website to display maybe password protected content. This is a very common method, and it's something that you will probably use if you build any kind of web application that is password protected. So I've got a simple login page here, and I've included the username and password. Normally, obviously, you wouldn't do that, but just to make it really easy for everybody to remember the username and password that we're using here, I put it in the label itself for each value. And you can see here, I've got my main page, and this is it. No matter what I do, all I'm going to see is this login. So I'm going to go ahead and log in here with the username and password. We are BC. There we go. When I hit login, this happens very quickly. It pulls me back. You can see, if you look closely, that it's the same page address, and it's passing a get variable back that says success. You can also see here that it is displaying the username. Now, if I refresh this page, I'm going to continue to get that. In fact, if I close that page and I go back to the same address, you can see here that but when I go back to that page, I'm still logged in. And if I get rid of the get variable, I don't have the success message anymore, but I'm still logged in, which means that that variable or that session superglobal is still out there. It uses a form of cookie that stores a ID for your session on the local computer, which refers to that session superglobal, which is a variable that's stored persistently on the server until it times out, which means you don't visit a page on that website for a period of time, and you can control that period of time. Or if you close the browser window, then that session is destroyed. Well, the other way to do it here is to click a logout link, which sends me to a logout page. And then you can see I'm back at that normal page. There's no session variable, and I'm completely logged out. So this is a very, very common, like I said, a very common way of dealing with login information. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to take a look at this as a diagram so you can see how this works. So this uses three files. It uses a main page, and on that main page, if the user is not logged in or if the session variable doesn't exist, then it shows the form. If they are logged in, then it shows the username and it indicates they're logged in. It shows whatever content is behind the login. And then the two other files are very simple scripts. They're just PHP pages that accept the form input for the login, check to see if the password and username are correct, and then set the session variable, and then send the user back to the main page. The logout script is even simpler. It's only a few lines of code. All it does is get rid of the session variable and send the user back to the page, which has the effect of logging them out. Let's take a quick look at some code. Okay, so on my main page, I've got a brief block of code up here that takes the get for the message that's returned back to the user, and you can see here if I fill this out incorrectly and I hit login, then I see the message that I didn't have the right username and password. And then if I do log in correctly using the right username and password, then it says you've logged in successfully. So those messages are controlled by this block of code up here, which just creates a paragraph that is styled accordingly for each message. And then, of course, I have a default of an empty string, so it inserts nothing if it's not one of these three messages or if there is no message, because I don't want to have an error referring to a variable that doesn't exist. So we've got a lot of style information there. And then the main piece of the code here is this block here that says if the username is not set in the session is superglobal, So the exclamation point before is set basically reverses it and says, if it's not set username inside the session superglobal, then we show this block of code, which is the login form. Else, so in other words, if the session is set, then it shows this block of code instead, including the username. Okay, so that is the main form. The login script is just one page of information, and it would be much shorter, honestly, if I hadn't included all of these different messages that get sent back to the browser. But basically, what it looks for first is, are the username and password set as post variables? Then it assigns those to regular PHP variables. And then it checks inside of that to see if the username is correct and the password is correct. Remember to use the double and sign to test and the double equal sign to test equality. And then it takes a session variable and puts the username that was submitted inside that session variable, and it sets a message variable to success. And then you can see, depending on whether the message is success, incorrect, or incomplete, it puts it all together in a location, a header function that gives the location of the main page plus the query string that includes the message. So it sends it back to the main page. The logout script is even simpler, and that one is really just 3 lines. The first line, and you'll notice in each of these scripts, the very first thing I write is session_start. If you want to access session variables from a page, you have to include this, and it has to be included near the top of your script before any HTTP headers have been sent. So I always put this almost first in my script every single time I'm going to use a session variable. So when I log out, I've got the session_start function, and then another one that says session_destroy. I think you can probably figure out what that one does, but basically it destroys the session. It destroys the session variable and gets rid of everything associated with it. And then finally, it sends us back to the main page again. So those are the 3 pages: the main page, the login, and the logout pages. And that's how they all work together to make a login form.